Why not stay in, turn off the alarm clock, and sleep some more on your perfect mattress from Quartz? For the widest range of mattresses from the world's best brands, the best value guaranteed. Shop today and let our sleep experts help you to decide on the best option to suit your needs. At Quartz, we don't just sell mattresses, we're offering you the best night's sleep. So, sleep in a little on your new mattress from Quartz. Quartz, bringing value home.
This is an unprecedented announcement from Horseman's. Get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. It's Horseman's Automotive Unprecedented Sales Event happening now. Yes, for the first time ever, you get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Yes, pay zero VAT and get up to $30,000 off on top of that. This has never been seen before. Unprecedented savings at the Unprecedented Auto Sales Event at Horseman's Automotive. Up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Let me repeat, up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Don't miss this, it's unprecedented. Terms and conditions apply.
Flo's new combo plan, the people's plan. Combo. New combo plan. You can call anyone, no matter which network you dey on. Just use your Flo.
I want a combo, but not for my belly. I feel me cell phone, so me call anybody. Call Mr. Man, call Granny. On the island, Flo, come boom.
Yes, there is no need for to force no more. Cause with Flo combo plan, you're paying less for more.
Flo got a new combo plan. You can call anyone, no matter which network you dey on. Just use your Flo.
Dial star 129 number sign to activate your combo plan today.
Why not stay in, turn off the alarm clock, and sleep some more on your perfect mattress from Quartz? For the widest range of mattresses from the world's best brands, the best value guaranteed. Shop today and let our sleep experts help you to decide on the best option to suit your needs. At Quartz, we don't just sell mattresses, we're offering you the best night's sleep. So, sleep in a little on your new mattress from Quartz. Quartz, bringing value home.
Well, a very good afternoon to you. Welcome to WinFM 98.9. It's good to be in your company this afternoon. I'm Clive Backus, and thanks to German Abel this morning for hosting the first segment of Voices. We're very happy to have with us today on the second segment of the program. We have Ambassador Jonel Powell, who is campaigning for number 2 in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And we have Member of Parliament Konris Maynard, number 3 in St. Kitts and Nevis, and that's number 3, constituency number 3. Both gentlemen are perhaps of the same age, I'm not sure, and they can deny or clarify. But I know they both wore the same school uniform back in the day. Bastille High School, it may have been, if I have it correct. So we have 2 young, bright young men from opposing political parties to offer some perspective for us today. And what we'll do, I have a few questions I shared with them, which hopefully we'll get a chance to perhaps go through all of them, if not all, at least some of them. And the format we're going to do today, the format we're going to use today will be I'll pose a question and invite both gentlemen to comment in turn. And of course, there'll be an opportunity for a rebuttal if necessary, and then we go to the next question. Hopefully, we'll get through at least 5 questions today. If not, next time around. But let's get started right away. Let me say a very good afternoon to Ambassador Jonel Powell. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Clive. Good afternoon to the listening public. Konris, it's been a while since I've been on WinFM.
I mean, I said I remember you. I mean, I thought to look at the face and say, I think I know this face. But the mask.
It's a mask, it's a mask.
The last couple of times she was running for me.
Here we go. We started early, boy.
telling you.
That's how it is.
But, it's always a pleasure to be here on WinFM and to be able to speak with the people, the listening public. Voices is not unfamiliar, and so happy to be here to discuss, what's a very important topic in our history, and look forward to having a good discourse today.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Powell. Let's go now to Member of Parliament, Konris Maynard. Mr. Maynard, were you playing what, cricket at Bassett High School? What was your major sport?
Yes, it would have been cricket at the time.
I thought so.
Cricket. Opening batsman.
Oh,
yeah.
This should be good. We have an opening bowler here too. We have an opening bowler in Mr. Powell and an opening batsman in Mr. Maynard.
He was more into basketball. He tried a thing in basketball.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very happy to have you here with us today. You're always welcome to NFM 98.9. Good to be in your company again. And we want to get started with our first question, invite the opening comments on the question from the same batting order we started with. We'll begin with Mr. Powell, then have comments by Mr. Maynard, and then we'll give a chance to have an exchange if you so choose before we go on to the next question. The gentlemen have all the questions before them already. So the first question basically says, Parliament on Wednesday will come to an end for this term. In my language, it's called dissolution of Parliament. It really means that Parliament will end just before the next election. On the 14th of May, 2015 was the first sitting of Parliament under the new dispensation when the elections were won by Team Unity administration. So the 14th of May will be 5 years since then. And according to the Constitution, what happens then is that there's an automatic dissolution of Parliament on the 14th of May, which is on Wednesday. So the question is, from the perspective of...
On Thursday.
Sorry, on Thursday. Today's Tuesday, isn't it? Today's the 12th, yes. I do apologize for that. So what does the dissolution of the National Assembly on Thursday, I keep saying Wednesday, on Thursday mean in real terms from your perspective? So if the question is a bit soft, you guys could add ingredients to the question as well, but that's the question for you. And we're going to ask for the initial response to the question from Ambassador Powell. Ambassador?
Well, I think the question is very straightforward. What it means is that we have now come to the end of this parliamentary term. Effectively, it means that we are now at a stage where the parliament is being dissolved. It will cease to sit, and we then look towards a general election in order to determine who the members will be for the ensuing term. It is not very often that we see the end of the term. We literally take it down to the constitutional end of a term here in St. Kitts and Nevis at least. To my best recollection, this has only happened once in our history, certainly in our recent history, which I believe would have been prior to, or in around 2009, 2010. I think that's when we had elections. And obviously the circumstances are very different this time. I think generally speaking, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis understand very well why we would have seen this parliamentary session go right down to the end. Unfortunately, we have had to deal with the COVID-19 situation for the last number of months, which has meant that life is just not the same as we're accustomed to it being. And as such, we've had to do things differently. We've had to prioritize. And at the end of the day, I think that is what is most important. Prioritizing the things that are most important for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And in this instance, it is certainly the health of the people. Notwithstanding, however, life does go on. COVID does not define us. It does not stop life. And so we do have to continue with the business of the country. And that means we now look towards a general election here in St. Kitts and Nevis. A general election which I think is going to be very different, but one that has to come nevertheless, and one that we will, I'm pretty sure, on both sides contest quite vigorously, bearing in mind all the various protocols that we must abide by under this coronavirus situation.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. To turn now of Member of Parliament, Konris Maynard. Mr. Maynard.
Yes, I want to say a special good afternoon to yourself, Jonel here, and the listening public, and in particular the constituents of constituency number 3, who have had the pleasure to represent in Parliament over the past 5 years. What the dissolution of the National Assembly means in real terms is the life of the parliament is now expired. And generally, you would hope that you would enter into a campaign upon the dissolution of parliament. Although right now we are under COVID-19 conditions, these conditions were not there up until mid-March. And at that point, the government had already passed its 5-year anniversary in government. And the government at the time was saying that they were very confident, but they failed then to dissolve the House. Traditionally, after someone's first term, they're very confident that they don't have to push things down to the end. In fact, the government at the time showed no inclination before the onset of COVID to dissolve the House. But now, the Constitution requires that it be done. Even from the own rhetoric of the government prior to COVID was, we're not in any rush. Elections can be as far down as August. COVID was nowhere in sight to push, to set that particular agenda. Even during COVID, they still maintain that it could be all the way down to August. So what the real terms are is that the government's hand is now literally forced by the Constitution to ensure that we do have an election. And so what will happen now is that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis have an opportunity to choose a new set of representatives to govern the affairs of St. Kitts and Nevis after the next general elections. And I think that people are looking forward to that because, honestly, it would have been best if we could have been dealing with COVID without an election season around. It could provide the government with more focus. Now they have to literally split their attention between managing a pandemic and also a general elections. Had the rhetoric rang true that the government was very confident since October, November, December, January, we could have had an election already, a new government would be in place, and our sole purpose would be on dealing with COVID-19 and the economic recovery that has to come. So the dissolution of Parliament, which must happen, I am surprised that we are at this point, that it has not necessarily been announced yet, because we all are aware of the prevailing conditions. They're not going to change before May 14th. We are not waiting on something that can happen right now that will just open up our eyes. We know that COVID is with us now, from now and for a few months. So we are surprised, and my estimation is that I asked a question recently, what time is the address today by the Prime Minister to dissolve the House? Because if he doesn't dissolve today, then there's no more anything left. It has to be tomorrow, or else it automatically dissolves. So we look forward to that, and so that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis can have their day at the polls.
Any response, Ambassador?
Clive, it's interesting when I listen to Konris and talking about the government's hand being forced and when they could have dissolved the parliament before. I think what he and the members of his party seem to forget is that they're in opposition. The government has a constitutional term of 5 years. It is in the prerogative of the Prime Minister to determine when during that period he chooses to call the election. I mean, nobody can doubt the confidence of the Team Unity administration based on its performance over the past 5 years. But at the end of the day, it is for the Prime Minister to determine when he wants to go and when he's ready to go. And the fact of the matter is, we have not, as an administration, there have been no laws broken, there have been no laws bent. This is what it is. We do have until, I believe it is the 15th of August, until to have the general elections. And if the Prime Minister chooses to go down to August, that is his prerogative. But at the end of the day, it is his decision. And I have the greatest respect for Timothy Harris and confidence in him to determine an election at a point in time which is most appropriate for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, particularly considering the fact that we do have these COVID-19 conditions to deal with.
We're going to go to the second question. Can elections be held while St. Kitts and Nevis the borders of St. Kitts and Nevis remain closed due to COVID-19 concerns? Why? And of course, Member of Parliament Konris, Maynard, you can also, if you still want to continue with the part of the first question, if you want to offer a response, that's it. But the question, you will now give the first presentation to the question. Let me repeat the question again. Can elections be held while St. Kitts and Nevis borders remain closed due to COVID-19 concerns? And if so, why? If not, why?
Right. So naturally, if we are in a situation where the health of the nation requires that there is absolutely no inbound traffic into our country, well, our constitution mandates that we have elections. However, given what we hear and what we have seen over the past years and even recently, is that there is great concern that there might be one standard for one party in government, and another standard for a party not in government. We saw it happen over even just the state of emergency, where persons were limited to their activities during the partial curfew, while the government members and their associates took advantage of the situation of the full lockdowns. And so we've seen it in a number of things, of course, where there is great concern that it is possible that our borders can remain closed, but then somehow there are exceptions that only the government can grant. So the point here is that whatever the position is, it must be a position that is transparent and clear to everyone and accessible to everyone on all sides. This is a democracy. We are supposed to have a fair, level playing field. That is how it is. Regardless of what transpired 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 20 years ago, 5 years ago, we should always be moving to a point where our democracy becomes more equitable and equal access to everyone. So, yes, of course, if, for instance, there is a major outbreak next month and it is deemed a health risk, that the borders have to remain closed, then I think that determination can be made. But any opportunity that our residents or our nationals have to exercise their franchise, they should not be blocked.
Ambassador Powell?
I agree with the last part of Konris' statement. Regardless of what would have happened 5 years ago and 10 years ago and 15 years ago, the playing field must be leveled. And I'm confident that over the past 5 years, the Team Unity administration has done what it had to do to level that playing field. We pulled out all the backhoes and we leveled it because it clearly was not leveled before. As far as the ability to have elections is concerned, I think that it is very possible. I know some persons have criticized the statement recently by Denzel Douglas. If you could line up in shopping to go shopping, you can line up to vote. To an extent, I agree with that, provided that the necessary protocols are put in place, provided that the necessary facilities are put in place. I think that we are at a point in time where we can properly have general elections. I'm so proud of the COVID-19 task force, led by the CMO and Mr. Abdiel Samuel from NEMA, as well as the federal cabinet, which is led by the Prime Minister, in their stellar performance in terms of managing this pandemic here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We're now at a stage where I believe there's only one outstanding COVID positive test out of 15. We've not had a new case in, I think, 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And so they have managed this situation and managed the country to such a point where we are now at a stage where we can properly have a general elections. And I agree, there need not be any reason to limit anyone's right to vote. I think if you're eligible to vote, you should be allowed the opportunity to vote, provided that we all abide by the necessary protocols. We are very confident. We are looking forward to the next election. I have a seat to win. I need to get into Parliament to ensure that the people of Central Bastille are properly represented, and so we're ready to go.
Response?
I just wanted to respond because the gentleman here, my colleague from school days, has said that the playing field has been level. But to date, for instance, the government has had an opportunity to exercise their muscle on the national broadcasting station, that is ZIZ, while the opposition has been denied. The government has been able to, for instance, conduct its town hall meetings in community centers across this country, while the opposition has been denied. That is certainly not a level playing field. We have seen in Parliament where members of the government have been allowed to speak without hindrance, while members on the opposition have been countlessly denied that opportunity to speak. And I recall the Prime Minister very clearly saying that members of the public should not listen to Marcel Leibert, not listen to Denzel Douglas, not listen to Konris Maynard. This is not what you call a level playing field. Compared to in years ago, when Jonel Powell could have gone to a community center to exercise his right to criticize the government without fear that he will be denied on countless occasions. But I can't even use my own community center in St. Johnson Village and many others around the country. So there has not been a level playing field. So there is not much confidence in the general public that this government will be fair and unbiased in their approach to manage the elections.
If I may just correct one or two things there. There is evidence that members of the Labour Party have been allowed to use community centres. It is there. I mean, they've advertised, they have held functions, they've taken pictures. What
type of functions?
As a matter of fact, even when you talk about the use of the state media, I'm assuming you mean ZIZ.
I did say ZIZ.
Right. Mm-hmm. So there is nothing preventing the Labour Party from utilising the services of ZIZ.
That is not true.
If there are any outstanding invoices that need to be taken care of before they could use it, that's a different story. And so that is a business decision. I can't go and use somebody thing and owe their money.
Absolutely not. And that is the
screw of... So that is not... It is not that they're being denied. And, you know, this is... I just see a situation where...
That is not true.
I just see a situation where the opposition is crying foul before anything even happens. Look, there's absolutely no need for us to be afraid of you using state media. It is there for all of us. We are all citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, and the playing field is level. Utilize it. Do what you have to do. Put yourself in a position to use it, and use it.
Well, that is clearly not true. We have written, even as you have, first of all, there also is a distinction between the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party and the federal opposition.
As there's a distinction between the government and the political parties.
Absolutely. And so the government is allowed to use ZIZ at its whims and fancy, while the opposition in Parliament is not allowed to do the same. We have written, we have gotten roadblocks. In some cases, we haven't even been given the simple courtesy of a response. And so there are a number of examples. I mean, we can go on and on about the imbalance in our society as it relates to the government and as it relates to the opposition. But we do have some other questions to deal with, but it is definitely, nobody really believes that the government offers a level playing field in St. Kitts and Nevis at this point.
Moving on to the next question. Of course, there's room for debate in the program. That's the reason why we're having the program with two gentlemen who are young, talented, and qualified, discussing perspectives based on their views and based on the party's positions. That's why we're having a discussion. So we'll move on to the next question. And the next question is simply this. Do you believe that the elections will be held on the same constituency boundaries as the last one? Why? And what are the pros and cons of that reality, if any? Let's begin with Ambassador Powell. So we take turns like that, alternate.
I expect the elections to be held on the same boundaries as the last one. There's been no new constituency boundary report to change it. There's been no change in the status quo of any legal proceedings to change the boundaries that we go on. As to the pros and cons, I think there are both pros and cons. I believe strongly that there ought to be electoral reform, further electoral reform that is, including constituency boundary review. But there are a number of things. It must be done properly, and this is the problem that we have had even
over the last 5 years.
With the last administration, in terms of the manner in which they want to change constituency boundaries. The laws that prescribe how it should be done. There are international bodies who that is what they do. They do nothing but look at and review constituency boundaries for electoral purposes. At the same time, there are other things that need to be factored in. It must not just be a single exercise, but it must be a holistic exercise. One of the things that the government has been doing over the past few years is doing certain exercises whereby streets are being named, every household every house and household needs to be numbered so that each house is identifiable, so that, for example, as it stands now, and it has been for forever, a person can go to the electoral office and register in Central Bastia on Central Street. Well, where on Central Street do you live? And so there are different things that need to be put in place in order to effectively have a proper constituency boundary review. The other thing that must be taken into consideration is the where are we in terms of census data. I think the last census was taken in around 2011. So there's another one. There's another 10-year, normally a 10-year cycle. There's another census coming around just now. Would it be most appropriate to use 2011 data when we have a new report which should be due within a year's time? And so these are just some of the things that I think play a part in ensuring that we have a proper review system. However, the boundaries are what they are now, and people know what the boundaries are. People know what the boundaries are. We've been able to operate on them. We do need review, but it must be a proper review.
All right, respectfully, that is nonsense. Let me say why. Number one, we are operating on 1989 boundaries. That is how much years now? That is 31 years ago. First point, demographics and where people live, etc., has changed immensely. What must be clear is that in the last election, the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party received a majority of the people voting, a plurality of the vote. So when you cut up anything that generally you have a plurality, if you cut it up evenly, generally, mathematically, you will still end up with the person who has the plurality coming out on top. The People's Action Movement and the opposition at the time understood that if they allowed a proper boundaries exercise to take place, they will not have a chance to win the general elections. That is very clear. Why I say that? Because even in the court case that made the last report null and void, it said nothing to the effect that the process of getting the data, of collecting the data, of aligning the boundaries was inadequate. The only issue that was brought in the first case, that is the one between 2010 and 2015, or 2013 or 2014 thereabout, is that the final phase of consulting back with the parties did not happen. It ruled that the chairman was not biased, that the information used could have been used. It dealt no blow to the process. So the process revealed a good outcome. But they could not allow that to happen because it would spell disaster for them in terms of just numbers. Elections are about numbers. Thereafter, Jonel Powell and the PAM party and the other coalitions took the last boundaries report to court, claiming that something was drastically and tremendously wrong with it. Where is that case today? If you are so convinced that the process was wrong.
When was that report
that report
passed?
Is from the 2014 result of the 2014. Well, the Boundaries Commission started in 2012. It is the report of that particular commission.
When was that passed?
That was passed in the House in 2015.
Oh, that was on the same day, the dissolution of Parliament, right?
Hold on. I know what you're trying to do.
No, I just want to make sure we're talking about the same report.
This government has had 5 years to justify why they wanted an injunction, claiming that something was wrong with the process of coming together with the boundaries. Now, if you are saying that something was wrong with the process and that we definitely need review and reform, you want to tell me your government is not capable of doing that within 5 years? Well, I'm a member of the Boundaries Commission, and our first meeting was December of 2019, 2 months before the end of the term. Before that, the government did absolutely nothing, zilch, to further the court matter with respect to the 2015 boundaries. Because they understand that they have no case. They understand that if that were to go to trial, they would lose. And if they lost, it then meant that the 2015 boundaries will then become the boundaries that we go on. And they would have little political capital to therefore go and change those boundaries again. Because the court would have decided that nothing is substantially wrong or is wrong with the 2015 boundaries. So they have made a political decision to not allow the boundaries to be changed. In fact, I will go back and say that in the 1980s, the People's Action Movement, who were in charge at the time, they didn't go through any process of consulting anybody when they were doing boundaries. They didn't consult anybody. They didn't look at data that Jonel Powell is talking about. They stood in a room in 45 minutes and changed the boundaries such that they could make Sandy Point a constituency by itself because they realized that they had more political support there. So to this day, Sandy Point remains the smallest constituency in St. Kitts and Nevis. That is less than half the size of the largest one, which is constituency number 8. So presently, our democracy doesn't have a one man, one vote. Because the vote in Sandy Point, which is 1 out of, say, 2,000 and something, is a much stronger vote than the vote, say, in constituency 8, which is 1 out of 7,000. So your vote is less important in a constituency, say, like 8, than a constituency like number 2. And they have done zero to try to correct that. In fact, in this New Boundaries Commission that started in December, we met a few times. And I was pleading that we have to follow the letter of the law. But instead, the chairman, Denzel Cook, already started making decisions that were ultra-virus to the commission, meaning making decisions that had nothing to do with what we met and decided. Deciding who will come and when they will come. They brought a set of rules that we were to vote on, and they refused any contribution from the members of the opposition. In fact, I understand that outside of the commission, the chairman has gone to try and remove the councils from the previous Boundaries Commission to replace it with his own. That certainly is not a level playing field. That certainly is not a process that allows for the proper handling of the Boundaries Commission. So there is no moral ground at all, not even high or low, that Jonel or the PAM party can stand on as it relates to boundary changes in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Ambassador?
Clive, I will not sit here and be lectured on boundary changes and moral ground in terms of boundary changes by any member of the Labour Party. Bearing in mind that it was the same Labour Party you're complaining about the first meeting being 2 months before the end of the term. It was the same Labour Party who came on the day of dissolution of Parliament to change boundaries. If you were so interested in changing the boundaries, when you had the opportunity to change them, you would have changed them and done it properly. And not for the second time, wait until the deadline. Remember, that was the very issue.
Absolute nonsense again.
You had your chance. That was the very issue which caused this country to see us go down to the very end of the same parliamentary term that we're talking about in terms of automatic dissolution. Because you talk about a government's hands being tied, Denzel Douglas and his Labour Party's government hands were tied because they knew they couldn't win the election, and the only way to do it was to attempt boundary changes amongst other electoral deforms, as I would put it. And that is why he was actually forced to go down to the end. Look, nobody has a greater vote than I do in this country. And my vote is no greater than anyone else's vote.
It is simply
Everybody has a vote, and they vote. You had your chance. Everybody's vote counts. And tell the people in East Bastille that one of those 4 votes was any more or less important than a vote in constituency number 6. We all have the same vote. That's absolutely nonsense. Look, one of the things I discussed, well, let me put it in a different way. Konris is talking about situations and reports and data from 5 and 6 years ago. That is behind us. And I don't know, the Labour Party doesn't seem to understand that they're in opposition now. They can't let go. That has gone. We are beyond that. I am talking about the situation today in 2020, when we are closer now to census data for the 2021 census than we were to the 2011.
Let me just
They were closer.
him.
No.
It's
when you
very
finish, you can
important.
respond. No, when you finish, you can respond. When I'm finished, you can respond. The date, it has changed. We are 5 years on. And now I'm saying, let us do what we have to do now. And I'm very confident that the government is doing all that it needs to do to ensure that when the time comes, we can start a proper constituency boundary review process and expect changes. I could tell you, I did a report, my thesis in at UE for law was in Law and Society was on electoral reform in St. Kitts and Nevis, and specifically on boundary review. I believe that the boundaries need to be reviewed. I believe that we need boundary changes, but I believe that it must be done properly and that we must not throw any last minute or unfair system on the people. The first thing Konris started out with was talking about a process that they embarked upon which would ensure that the Labour Party won the election. That's the first thing he said in his response,
Man,
in
come
his
on,
answer.
man, come on.
The first thing he said was, we were bringing a process where PAM couldn't win or the opposition couldn't win.
Come on,
And that is
come
what,
on,
we
come
all
on,
know that. You're not telling us anything new. The people
Come on, man.
know that that was the agenda.
Come on, man, Jonel. Come on. I never said that. I said that if you split St. Kitts and Nevis equally, Labour will win. Simply because we have the majority.
You think so?
Bottom line. Based on all recent data, in 2015, the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party received more votes than the People's Action Movement.
If you want a new electoral system, then advocate for a new electoral system. But we have a constituency boundary system,
Jonel,
and that is why Team Unity won the last election.
You asked me to wait. I waited.
Go ahead.
But I will go on to why I probably don't expect that you would follow that. So the same data that he's saying is old. I just wanted to inform him that his colleagues, Patches and Vance Amry, wanted to use that same data in the Boundaries Commission meeting. The same data he's saying that they should try to get new data. But his own colleagues, that is the data they wanted to use.
So
he also said,
data,
hold on,
what other data do you have to use at this point?
Hold on. Then he said that we waited for last minute to try and change boundaries in January. Nothing is further from the truth. The process starting in December in 2012 in the last Labour administration. They came up with a report maybe a year or so after. They submitted that report. His party took that report to court to stop the process. Not because the boundaries were unequal, but because they made a political decision that if this goes through, boy, we ain't got no chance. So they stopped the report in 2013 or thereabout. It went to court. A decision was made in the middle of 2014. The Boundaries Commission reconvened, met again for many months. They had the reports. His party, other parties were consulted. They provided the insight. They received back all the consultation. So when it came in January 16 to pass this, they had been seeing all of the data, all of the information for months upon months. It was nothing new to them. Going to Parliament was just the last phase. And ordinarily, when you have a process like that all of the parties are engaged, it is now just a formality when you go to Parliament. But again, they were intent on not allowing those boundaries to come through. Because anyhow you have them equal in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have no chance. So they made a political decision, not a democratic decision, not a decision in the interest of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, but in a self-serving interest.
So the opposition blocked it?
Yes, absolutely. They intentionally put it in the court to draw it out. And to this day, because they knew that they have no substance. I mean, Jonel Powell will know. He's a lawyer, and he has used all of the technicalities to try to wiggle his way out of things before. And I guess we could talk about that. So he's very well aware of the tactics that his party has been traditionally known for in terms of dragging things in the court to otherwise stop well-meaning intentions for any particular government. So it was never last minute. You know what was last minute? This government coming 2 months before the 5th term to start the process. That never happened on the Labour. It was always a long-term process, which they stopped. This also happened in 2008, 2009. There was a report that was presented long before the due date of elections. And guess what? The People's Action Movement took that report to court again. They ensured that they were not even a part of the process.
We keep going to court and we keep winning, but the boundaries are the boundaries.
In order to safeguard their political interests. Here's my deal. Let us close our eyes, cut up St. Kitts and Nevis into 8 equal pieces, and whoever win.
Gentlemen, we'll take a pause for a moment. We want to hear from our sponsor. I want to thank you very much for a very good debate on the program today. We'll continue in just a moment. Let's hear now from our partners, Essel Hospital and Company Limited, Courts and Flow.
This is an unprecedented announcement from Hospitals. Get up to $30,000 off and pay 0 VAT on top of that. It's Horseman's Automotive Unprecedented Sales Event happening now. Yes, for the first time ever, you get up to $30,000 off and pay 0 VAT on top of that. Yes, pay 0 VAT and get up to $30,000 off on top of that. This has never been seen before. Unprecedented savings at the Unprecedented Auto Sales Event at Horseman's Automotive. Up to $30,000 off and pay 0 VAT on top of that. Let me repeat, up to $30,000 off and pay 0 VAT on top of that. Don't miss this. It's unprecedented. Terms and conditions apply.
Why not stay in, turn off the alarm clock, and sleep some more on your perfect mattress from Quartz? For the widest range of mattresses from the world's best brands, the best value guaranteed. Shop today and let our sleep experts help you to decide on the best option to suit your needs. At Quartz, we don't just sell mattresses, we're offering you the best night's sleep. So, sleep in a little on your new mattress from Quartz. Quartz, bringing value home.
Flow helps you stay connected to what matters. Simple plans and a better network mean that you can enjoy 30 days of unlimited social messaging, 10 gigabytes of reliable data to use as you like, and 1,000 local anywhere calls and texts. With the always-on prepaid plan, all for $100. Keep your number when you switch to St. Kitts' most reliable LTE network. Switch to Flow. It only gets better.
You're tuned to WinFM 98.9. We're very happy to have with us today Member of Parliament Konris Maynard, Ambassador Jonel Powell. We have a few questions we posed to both gentlemen, and we're having a very useful debate. Now, we've just got about 15 minutes to go on the program or thereabouts, so time really flies when you're having fun. So I'm now going to pose the last question. Actually, I had 2 questions. I put them into one question because of the situation with the time available to us. And that question is, while it's unclear when emergency laws will be revoked or relaxed, what are the implications, in your view, of campaigning under a state of emergency? And as a part of that question, what are your thoughts about how campaigns are being conducted at the moment? So we'll begin. I think it's now Mr. Maynard's turn to get the ball rolling, and then we're going to have Mr. Powell, and then parting comments from both gentlemen. Mr. Maynard.
Right, thank you very much. I am just receiving a message here, but I will not report as yet until I am sure. that is what I'm seeing there. But the question is about the emergency laws being revoked and what implications of campaigning under a state of emergency. Well, we had an argument in Parliament, a discussion argument in Parliament, that one, it was completely unnecessary for the government to bring a state of emergency for 12 months. That is what they sought to do on April 17th. Given their rhetoric that somehow they were doing so very well compared to everyone else, yet they sought to bring a state of emergency for 12 months. We said that that was completely unacceptable, and the way in which they were doing it was also unconstitutional. They had in language like up to, which does not exist in our constitution. It has to be a specific time. Eventually, they did say that they changed it to up to 6 months. But this government, after they would have voted for language that they gave the impression that they had the ability to stop the state of emergency at any time, which they don't, they passed a resolution with language saying up to 6 months. Lo and behold, 2 days later on Sunday, when I get the email of the gazetted form of the resolution, the language in the resolution was changed after the Parliament voted on a particular language. That is the essence of this government. They are willing to do these kind of things behind the cloak of night. So imagine we in Parliament agree to say 6 months in prison for X crime. And then somebody decides after that they're going to change it to 12. They just change one word from 6 to 12. That is illegal. It is fraudulent. And this government, including the Speaker of the House and everyone on the government side, is complicit in the unlawful and fraudulent altering of the state of emergency resolution that was passed in Parliament on April 17th. So we now have a state of emergency for the next 6 months. And what happens in a state of emergency is that the government has the right to limit your freedoms that exist to you under our Constitution. They have additional arrest powers and so on. So people are getting concerned that given the track record of Timothy Harris and this government, what can one expect during an election when you have a state of emergency, where the police has additional arrest powers, they can take away property, they can take away all sorts of things to suppress persons. This will be a challenge in St. Kitts and Nevis. So the responsible thing the government ought to have done, given that COVID-19 has been with us since the end of March, is they should have already prepared material for us to go to Parliament, to have legislative backing to adjust how we go to the polls under these present conditions, whether it is social distancing requirements, mask requirements, polling station requirements, how long the poll station is going to be open, how do you deal with quarantined persons and their right to vote. All of these things should have been done already because we know that COVID-19 is here. This is how a proactive government should have been working in order to find or adjust our legislation specific for the times. We have not seen that happening as yet. And so we really do not know exactly how we are going to operate in an election on the state of emergency. And that should not happen. That lacks transparency. People are guessing. It's the same way that every week or now every 2 weeks before we know what the new regulations are going to be, people on Friday or Thursday don't know what they can plan for on Saturday and Sunday when we already know that the prevailing conditions exist. So the Prime Minister has been coming a day. So the one before this was a day before, I believe. This time was, I think, on Thursday afternoon or something like that, to tell people how they should plan the next 2 weeks of their lives. It is just a haphazard, make-up-as-you-go approach that is not good for the country. So we do not know what will happen on the state of emergency, and it would be better if we could know by legislation exactly what we are to do, such that people do not get in trouble. Now, in terms of how the campaign is being conducted in your view? Naturally, there will be changes to the how campaign is done. But that should not, whether it is virtual, because we can't interact, we can't have big crowds and so on. But I think the fundamentals must exist. That the electorate must be able to look at all candidates and parties and decide whether these people are fit to hold public office. And I want, as I said earlier today, to reach to a point, and Jonel can respond, where we understand what the standards are for electing people to political office. Is the standard as low as you can commit murder and nobody asks a question, you should just be able to run? Or should the standard be that you can be found by a court of law to have misappropriated $1.25 million of a client's fund, as Jonel Powell and his colleague Lindsey Grant have been found to do? Should there be a question that he is able to compete in a general elections? What standard is that? How can Jonel Powell then tell someone who has a rumor that he took up a court that he can't run? But you can be in politics when a court decision, not a pending court decision, has found that you have misappropriated $1.25 million of client fund, and has gone further to say that you will be brought before a tribunal to decide how you are disciplined, whether you are suspended for a time or completely barred from practicing law. Those are decisions that our democracy should be at a state where you should not be allowed to contest, or at the very least should have the integrity or the moral compass to say, you know what, let me step back and not be a distraction to the democratic process. But that is not what we're seeing. So the choices don't change. People still have to make the same choices in constituency number 2, number 3, all across. They have to look at each candidate and say, can I trust these people with the governance of this country? Will they be doing things in the dark, as they did in changing the resolution, as they did with holding up a client's fund for many, many years, bouncing a check when he's asking for his money, or asking to pay back his own money in installments, or colluding with the court to ensure they try to get this thing out of the way? Those are still the pertinent questions that remain in the election.
Ambassador?
I think Konris's response is true to form and shows that the Labour Party, including him, have no campaign to put before the people of this country, because he's not answered the question. I'm going to start with his last comments. I'm going to be very brief on them, and then deal with the true question that is before us. And I'm going to warn you publicly, Konris, to be careful what you say. Don't try to be the lawyer by osmosis that we know you to be. Be very careful what you say. Because Lindsey Grant and myself have done nothing wrong. The same court case that you refer to specifically indicates that there are no monies unaccounted for, there are no monies missing, there are no monies that are owed to anybody. That matter is before the Court of Appeal as we sit here now because of inconsistencies in the very judgment. It seems as though the only thing that the Labour Party has to put to the people of this country are stories and propaganda and fear-mongering. But at the end of the day, the people of this country made a decision 5 years ago, a decision that I'm pretty sure that they're happy they made, and I expect them to continue along in that thread. I find it a bit hypocritical to try and malign my name and Lindsey Grant's name with all of this, but at the same time, you fail to talk about your own party leader and his case in England, and the monies, the cash that he was found in illegal possession of at Gatwick Airport. we don't need the double standards.
Right.
And it comes back to, you spoke already, and it comes back to
and I agree with that.
the
Let's
point.
set
No,
the
you
standards.
you spoke.
Let us set the standards.
So it comes back to the point. It comes back to the
Show
point.
me the court findings.
It comes back to the point that the tail can't wag the dog. The dog must wag the tail. And the Labour Party is the tail in the parliament. You're in opposition. You cannot determine how the elections are held, when they're held, and you can't seem to come to grips with that. You are in opposition. You had 15 years as a party to lead this country, and you failed miserably. This Team Unity administration has done a fantastic job, and they continue to do a fantastic job. I believe when you look at just the manner in which they have managed this COVID-19 situation in the past 3 months, shows it is consistent with the management, good management of this country over the past 5 years. And so when you look at how do we campaign, we are still able to go out and speak to the people and spread our messages to the people. I mean, we're in the age of social media. I am able to put out videos and posts that reach thousands of people daily. I still have contact with my constituents. I mean, and the Labour Party has an opportunity to do the same. We both parties go around and give out food hampers to constituents. I'll catch you in my constituents yesterday.
You see, that's because I know where my constituents are.
But
he saw me in his constituency yesterday.
But the fact is, man, it was a little joke, man. Relax,
because they
man.
had to move.
But the fact of the matter is, hold on, man. But the fact of the matter is, we do have the opportunity to go out and respectfully engage with our people. But we must abide by the protocols. We must be respectful of who we are dealing with, in many instances, elderly people. And so we must accept that we do have to change the manner in which we go about the campaign. It can't be business as usual. I don't imagine that we can even think about things like rallies and political meetings, but we must be, we have to think outside of the box in terms of what we can do. This very program in itself, I mean, Voices and all the other radio talk calling programs and so are good opportunities for us to reach the people. But at the end of the day, Clive, you can't come in the last shower of rain and expect to win an election. And we have been in constant contact with our people, with our constituents over the past 5 years. We have put so many positive programs before them that have improved their lives, that they know what we're about, they know where we're going. They've seen it. The thousands of people who've benefited from the roofing program, the thousands of persons who continue to receive the $500 from the poverty alleviation program every month. When you look at the stimulus package that has been made available to COVID-19 affected persons, it is unmatched anywhere in the region and I guess anywhere in the world. Our people are being taken care of before COVID and during COVID, and they will continue to be taken care of after COVID in the second term of a Team Unity administration. We have real substance. We have programs to put to the people. We have a positive message to put to the people, which shows them exactly how we will continue to uplift them to improve the quality and standards of their lives. We don't need to come with fear-mongering and name-calling and cussing and abusing. I don't need to go down that road.
We
people
don't,
of
but
Central Bastia and the people of St.
said.
Kitts and Nevis understand what we're about. They know us, and they will continue to show the confidence in this Team Unity administration when we go to the polls sooner rather than later.
Right.
Well, gentlemen, before you continue, MP Maynard, we've had a few people who have asked us if we could go for a few minutes extra. I said I have to consult with the panelists because we had an agreement to go until about 1:30. Are
That's
you
fine.
available for a few more
If my
minutes?
people want me, they have me.
All right, good. Excellent. Glad to hear that. So back to you, MP Maynard.
Yes, so I wanted to just respond to Jonel because he said I should be very, very careful publicly. So I want to be extraordinarily careful and read from the judgment so that my words are not mistaken. The judgment against Lindsey Grant and Jonel Powell says, under Section 20, there can be This is a judgment public for anyone to have access to. The judgment says, and I quote, "There can be no question that there is a judgment of the court wherein the court accepted that the defendants, two partners, namely Mr. Lindsey Grant and Mr. Jonel Powell of the law firm of Grant, Powell & Co., had misappropriated the sum of US $460,000 belonging to the claimant. The court accepted that the defendants were also in breach of trust and of their fiduciary duties to the claimant. The court ordered damages to be assessed with hearing date 12 December 2019, which was stayed by the Court of Appeal on 2 December 2019, which, by the way, was, I think, thrown out as well. And let me go further to say that they like to say that nothing is owing now, which might be true. But a gentleman gave them money, I think, in about 2013. They were taken to court
in
2017. Let me just finish.
No, I'm going to stop you now because you're speaking.
Finish.
I am going to stop you now because you're speaking to facts that you know nothing about.
Well, I am just reporting.
And I'm going to warn Konris, Maynard, and I'm going to warn Mr. Bacchus on behalf of WinFM.
Right.
Because you're going on a very dangerous road.
Look, I am reading from the judgment.
No, you're picking out parts. And the point is,
pick out a good part then.
Read
part.
from paragraph 26. But at the end of the day, I'm not getting into debate about my court case. No. I'm not getting into debate about my court case. This is deflection.
It is not distraction.
This is deflection.
We have a situation where
that matters before the court.
Gentlemen, I have to make a ruling as the moderator. I believe that we will have to put a pause on this particular exchange because I invited you for a particular purpose. I allowed you both. I think the listeners have heard what you've had to say. And I think continuing along this vein is not going to serve any purpose at this point, in my estimation. We've heard the allegations made against Mr. Powell and, of course, Mr. Grant. We've heard their rebuttal to the allegations. So we've heard both sides, and the matter is still before the court. At some point, the matter will be resolved. But at the moment, I know that you are saying that you're basing your position, Mr. Maynard, on what you have before you. Mr. Powell is saying you're not seized of all the facts. He has facts that says clearly that he's not done anything wrong, and he doesn't want to continue this way because the full story has not been told, and the matter is still before the court. So on the one hand, we have two arguments. One saying, from you, on one hand saying, look, you gentlemen ought not to run for office, whatever. And on the other hand, the other gentleman is saying, look, you are defaming me, you're taking me down a road, you're treating me unfairly, let's stop it, I didn't come here for that. So I'm going to make a ruling that we will pause that deliberation, let the court make a decision on it, and we can come back after the court will have ruled that. So I hope that I'm being fair to both of you because I try to be fair to everyone. And let's get back to the substantive matter which we're here for, which is basically to explain to the public your perspectives as responsible members of the society, as men who are running for office, so people have some more clarity. I know sometimes in politics, the temptation is there to just sell a product. But what we're trying to do by offering both of you an opportunity here is to hear your perspective and yours. Very often you only hear one side, so you're hearing both. So if you don't mind, if you could move along from that.
Yes, I just wanted to say one thing, though, just to correct the record.
Sure.
The matter that I speak of is presently not before the Court of Appeal.
All right, I still want to stop that, though, because
no problem.
I still want to stop that right there because I know what you're doing, Mr. Maynard, but I want to stop it there because it's going to be a zero-sum situation for the program. Mr. Powell is not going to sit quietly by while you continue along that path. He's already given me a warning that WinFM should take control of the situation. He's being wronged. He's not going to put out there if you're saying it's not so. I am not a judge. All right? So let's get back. It's not a court of appeal. It's not a court of law. Let's get back on track in terms of the substantive discussions we want to put before the public and them understanding what the dissolution of Parliament really means. But I have a question to put to Mr. Powell as well, because Mr. Maynard made a very strong statement that the government changed the resolution, and that went unanswered. So I think it's only appropriate that Ambassador Powell, that you could comment on that from the government perspective. You, of course, are the only one here from the government as such, because the allegation that I understand is that one resolution was passed in Parliament and another matter was issued in the Gazette. And Mr. Maynard is saying this is I can't remember the exact language you used, but you used some very strong language. So can you please respond to that?
As far as I'm aware, what was passed is what was gazetted. However, I have observed the arguments that Mr. Maynard and the opposition members have made. I've seen certain posts that you've put up showing a distinction in two different documents. I have seen that. What I also see is an insignificant distinction in the documents. The distinction does not change the subject matter. It does not change the effect of the law, if there is in fact a distinction. Now, I'll be the first to say there ought not be any difference in what is gazetted to what is passed. I mean, that goes without say. If there's some error in there that needs to be addressed, then I think it should be addressed. So I am not saying, as far as I know, there is no distinction.
You have not seen it. You have not seen, just for the record, though, because I don't want our listeners to be confused. So
right.
You're saying then that you, Mr. Jonel Powell, you have not seen any difference.
I have not seen any official difference, but I do understand. I've seen the argument. I've heard the argument, and I'm saying that even if there was a difference, the distinction between the two, the word that was put in or removed, even if that was the case, does not change the substance of the piece of legislation, and so. Yes, they should be identical, and if they're not, they should be. But at the end of the day, the difference that is being alleged does not change in any way the substance of that piece of legislation.
And Mr. Maynard, just a quick question before you respond. When you discovered the difference based on your position, I am not weighing in whether there's a difference or not. I'm just sticking to what you're saying. You're saying based on your presentation that there was a difference. What happens when that happens? What is the next step that usually taken when that happens?
Right. So I'll respond to that.
If it happens.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll respond to that, but I want to just clarify. Jonel Powell, of all persons, should know that a single comma in the law or a single change of a word in the law can alter the whole essence of the law.
That's something it can, I agree.
Right? And so in this case, the government had argued in Parliament that they are passing a piece of legislation for up to 6 months. They argued that they could end it at any time. So it was to give persons confidence that we don't have to be under a state of emergency for 6 months, right? We don't have to be under a state of emergency for 6 months because it is up to. We were telling them that the Constitution doesn't allow them to do that. You have to say that it is 1 week, 3 weeks, etc., because people must have a definite understanding of when it is. Now, if what it was changed to in the gazetted version is that we were under a state of emergency for 6 months.
And I'm just seeking clarification. Does it not go on to say or less or shorter period?
No, it does not. It removed that part as well. So let me just read for you what was passed in Parliament, which says, what was passed in Parliament is this: now therefore be it hereby resolved by the National Assembly that it is necessary to extend the state of emergency up to a period of 6 months or such shorter period as may be specified to take effect from the 17th day of April 2020 to combat the threat of the COVID-19 virus to the Federation of St. Christopher and Nevis. The altered version that is gazetted says, now therefore be it hereby resolved by the National Assembly that it is necessary to extend the state of emergency for a period of 6 months to take effect from the 18th day of April 2020 to combat the threat of the COVID-19 virus to the Federation of St. Christopher and Nevis. There were other changes as well up top, taking out the words up to and leaving them for in the resolution, but I won't go through all of them. But that completely changes the essence of an argument they had in Parliament. Mark Grantley, in fact, on the same weekend was in Nevis saying how very important words are and that we are neglecting that it says up to. So which means it could be 1 week, it could be 1 month.
So just for the sake of clarity, just bear with me.
Yes.
So you're saying the distinction is the up to has been removed and replaced by for?
Yes.
Okay.
And also it has taken out for such shorter period. that has been removed in the altered version as well.
Clive, I don't have them before me, so I really can't confirm.
I will have
Right?
disadvantage as well,
So-
but I just
so-
want to make sure I understand.
So I
But I understand the argument.
Yes.
So I encourage you to get the gazetted resolution.
I will. I have to.
Right?
Yes, I have to.
And you will see the language there, and then you can listen to the section of the,
yes.
the
It's
Parliament.
something easy for me to do, but
Yes.
now, based on what you've said, though, what happens next?
Right. So this is unprecedented. We've not had a situation where you pass something in Parliament and the difference is printed in a gazette that alters the substance of what was passed
Now,
in
one
Parliament.
could assume that you have a typo. I'm not saying.
That would
I'm
be
not batting for
no
anybody.
problem, but that
Let's
would
say-
be a very easy thing for the government to say.
So what happens then?
So we have written,
Oh,
for
you've written.
instance,
Okay.
yes, to the Speaker of the House, and he has responded by a section that does not apply to anything we're saying. He responded, I can pull it up shortly, that after something happens in the Parliament, there can be no further questions about it. That in fact strengthens our point, that if something happens in Parliament, it cannot be changed. And so he has totally sidestepped the problem. We have since written to the Attorney General to ensure that this has been drawn to the attention of the government. And the government, who is usually not afraid to say anything, has been quiet on this issue because they are well aware that something wrong was done. You cannot have something passed in Parliament. Even if you make a mistake in the Parliament, there's only one recourse you have to correct something that was done in Parliament. You have to go back to Parliament to alter that. Another thing they said in Parliament is that the Governor General can end the state of emergency whenever he pleases. That as well is not so. The Constitution does not allow the Governor General to stop a state of emergency that is imposed by the Parliament. He can only stop a state of emergency that is imposed by himself. So the Parliament has to go back in session in order to end this particular state of emergency.
My only comment on that is if the opposition members feel so strongly, then put it before a court of law to make a
Right.
determination.
And I'm glad he said that, because that is the PAM philosophy. The court is there. We understand that it's going to take months and weeks, well, not weeks, months and years for anything to do. So I'll do what I have to do, and you put me in court.
No, man, but we're able to get the boundary decision overturned in days. What are
Yes,
you talking? The court is very efficient.
And that is why I believe the court when it says what it says about the behavior of Jonel.
No, gentlemen, I'm not going to go back there. But Mr. Maynard, I'm not going back there. I've already ruled on that. I'm not a speaker, mind you, but I ruled as a moderator, a very small moderator. I'm not a big boy. But we want to offer you an opportunity to wrap for today before we go. And I'm going to ask you, Mr. Maynard, not to go back in that cabinet that you went in shortly. I think we've had a lot of that. So if you could just go back to a few parting comments to our listeners in terms of your position on the issue of elections 90 days after Thursday the 14th. What thoughts would you like to share with your listeners that you haven't expressed before? You want to reiterate, right? And we started with Mr. Powell, so we'll begin now with Mr. Maynard and give Mr. Powell the final words onto this program. So, gentlemen, could you give your wrap in about 5 minutes? Would that be appropriate?
Right. So thank you very much, Mr. Bacchus, and I promise I will not go back to what we were talking about before.
When I say go back, I don't mean just go back. I mean any side door.
Right.
Anything,
any side
yes.
comments, and so I'll leave that for another show.
All right, sir. Thanks.
So yes, so the Parliament has to dissolve, all right, whether by crook or by hook, as the old people say. And I would expect that might happen possibly today, in order not for it to be within 24 hours of the automatic dissolution, just in order to kind of not do that. So I expect very much that the House will be dissolved. What that offers is for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis to now have a look at their future. apart from the times that we are in with respect to COVID-19, and because of COVID-19, the next government is going to have a tremendous weight on it in terms of the future of St. Kitts and Nevis. The St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party has not been the perfect party. Nobody would say that their party is. But we have shown time and time again, not by us saying it, but by the confidence reposed in us by the electorate, such that this will mark only 20 years, this 5 years will mark only 20 years, that the Labour Party has not been in government in St. Kitts and Nevis since adult suffrage in 1952. So almost every transformational change that has happened in St. Kitts and Nevis, the Labour Party can lay claim to it. We have been able to recover out of many situations that this country has faced, whether it is the devastating hurricanes of the late 1990s, which the response to that ensured that for the first time in a long time, the People's Action Movement could not even win a seat in St. Kitts and Nevis, and we were able to win 8 seats because of the confidence reposed in the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party. Again, we had to transition out of sugar because at that time we were losing too much from the industry. And we were able to transition without a major impact on the people, transition into tourism services, etc. We were the first country in this part of the world to come out of the 2008 recession. Let me repeat that. We were the first country in this part of the world, Antigua, US, Canada, just name them, the first country to recover after the 2008 financial crisis. The only other country in the Western world to have done that would have been Iceland, and we were second behind them. So we have recovered before, and we went on to make St. Kitts and Nevis number 1 in a whole number of efforts. We have in our leadership the Right Honourable Dr. Denzil Douglas, who was critically important in the advances made to deal with the AIDS pandemic. He has been recognized worldwide for that, especially I think when it comes to mother-to-child transmission of the HIV/AIDS. He has been lauded by people like Bill Clinton for his efforts, even coming from a small country. Plus, we now have a reinvigorated team of candidates who represent the best next generational development for this country. We have a wide range of people that cover almost all facets of our life here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And NextGen has shown itself to be able to quickly adapt to the situations that we find ourselves. We have been the first to adapt coming out of the impacts of COVID-19. We were first to talk about what should happen at our borders, what the health decisions that we should make. We were the first, an opposition party was the first to go out and assist persons who would have lost their jobs by providing, by now, over 7,000 care packages across St. Kitts and Nevis. 7,000 care packages to touch the individual people of this country. We have been the first and only, so far, to be able to have a virtual audience multiple times a week, multiple times a day, until last weekend or weekend before, when we had Labor Day celebrations. Everyone was asking, well, how are we going to adapt to a lockdown weekend? And there are many people who have called and said they've never been more excited at a Labor Day march than the one that had just passed, where we celebrated the efforts of our workers. They said they were tired, much more than when they marched on the streets. And so people are beginning to see and have seen now that the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party is able to adapt for the changing circumstances around us. And that is why they are so anxious for the dissolution of Parliament, such that we can elect a next-gen SKN team to transform our economy once again. We are the first, for instance, to establish an economic recovery council that allows for that plays an advisory role to the incoming government on how we should move forward in rebuilding our economy. And so the next gen SKN is ready to leave, because we have always been about the people. It has always been about the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and we will continue for the good that we can do with the next gen SKN team. So I want to leave here by saying that as this House dissolves shortly, within a few hours, I ask you in each of the constituencies to give your support to the next gen SKN team and vote for the hand, vote for Labour. We love you. We care for you. We have shown that over and over again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Konris Maynard, Member of Parliament of the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party. And of course, thanks for being here with us today. And of course, we must give you a chance to give you a plug for your team, which you did. It's a time now for Mr. Jonel Powell, the Ambassador Jonel Powell from the other team, to give his rap for today. Mr. Powell.
With all that said, 5 years ago, the people of this country made a very conscious decision to change the government, to change from a government that was bankrupt in the country to a government that has managed the affairs of this federation of ours like none other before. The people of St. Kitts and Nevis have seen true prosperity over the last 5 years. We've done away with the old way of things, the old rhetoric of the Douglas Labour Party, and we are seeing new sunshine, fresh sunshine in St. Kitts and Nevis. The track record of this team unity administration is unparalleled. We've seen advancements in this country in a 5-year period that we've not seen, certainly in 20 years of Labour before that. The efforts are there. The roads are there, the bus terminals are there, the ferry terminals are there, the infrastructure is there. The money in the pockets of people is there. People are generally better off under this team unity administration, and that is only after 5 years. The management of this COVID-19 pandemic, again, is consistent with that. We were one of, if not the first, to have a response to this. I smile when I think of a presentation made by Abdiel Samuel, who's the director of NEMO, when he was saying back in January when we started looking at a response to this thing that was happening in China. His counterparts were laughing and saying, man, that all the way in China, that ain't have nothing to do with us. We were ready for it. I use this opportunity to say thank you and to acknowledge persons like Abdiel Samuel, like our CMO, Dr. Hazel Laws, like our medical chief of staff, Dr. Cameron Wilkinson, and all of the other frontline essential workers who have been doing such a fantastic job of keeping this country, keeping our people safe at this point in time. I don't know what we would have done without them. And while I said that today is International Nurses Day, and I'd like to use the opportunity, I did put a message on social media, but let me use this opportunity to say thank you to our nurses. You have been those frontline soldiers that have really saved us, that have made us feel comfortable in this pandemic, not just in the pandemic, but outside. I have had, I've spent time in JNF, and I can't complain about the service from the nurses. You do so much for us, and I think we generally take people like nurses and teachers for granted. So let us all, if you see a nurse, tell her thank you. If you're on social media, you're posting about what you're looking at on Netflix, say thank you. Post a little thank you to the nurses. They really are appreciated. But I also go on to talk about the cabinet, our government, our executive, which is led by our Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, for leading the ship through this COVID-19 disaster. We got the best technical advice from our task force, and I think the decisions have been consistent with that advice, and we've seen the benefits, we've seen the positive results. Not positive COVID results, but the positive general results. And so, again, it shows that this government has the capacity to continue to take care of people and put the people of St. Kitts and Nevis in the best possible standard of life that they can. We look forward to a second term. This term is over. Whether the Prime Minister makes an announcement today, tomorrow, whether he does decide to let it lapse on its own, it doesn't matter. The term has ended, and we are back before the people to give them that opportunity to determine how they want to go forward. And I believe that the overwhelming majority of persons in this country have put the past right where it is in the past. We're not going backwards, we're only going forwards with another team unity administration, a bigger, better team unity administration that will continue to take this country from tier to tier and ensure that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis are better off than they were yesterday. And so I say thank you, Clive, for having me. It's always good to come and share with the people. It's always good to have different, perspectives on things, to have a little argument and thing. It gives people the opportunity to see that is really chalk and cheese, and that the cheese that they get from the team unity administration is what is going to nourish them for another term. So thank you.
Well, I want to thank you both gentlemen once again, Ambassador Jonel Powell. Thank you so much, and Member of Parliament Konris Maynard. And guess in the days when you were both at school, you probably were looking at each other, you with your cricket bat and you with your basketball in your hand, saying, one day we're going to meet at Win FM and have a good discussion on politics. Thank you very much.
I think we were discussing politics then too.
Thank you so much. And that's our program for today. We've had a discussion, a debate between two prominent young men in St. Kitts and Nevis, Ambassador Jonel Powell, Member of Parliament Konris Maynard, on the issue of the 14th of May. And of course, you've heard the discussions, you've heard the arguments and discussion. I hope at the end of the day that you have enjoyed today's program and you're more informed about some of the issues, at least from the perspective of hearing the viewpoints of the guests on today's program, Ambassador Jonel Powell, Member of Parliament Konris Maynard. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks so much to our sponsors.
This is an unprecedented announcement from Horseman's. Get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. It's Horseman's Automotive Unprecedented Sales Event happening now. Yes, for the first time ever, you get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Yes, pay zero VAT and get up to $30,000 off on top of that. This has never been seen before. Unprecedented savings at the Unprecedented Auto Sales Event at Horseman's Automotive. Up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Let me repeat, up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Don't miss it. It's unprecedented. Terms and conditions apply.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
Flo's new combo plan, the people's plan. Combo. Got a new combo plan. You can call anyone, no matter which network you dey on. Just use your Flow.
I want a combo, but not for my belly. I feel me cell phone, so me call anybody. Call Mr. Man, call Granny. On the island, Flow, come boom.
Yes, there is no need for to force no more. Cause with Flow combo plan, you're paying less for more.
Flow got a new combo plan. You can call anyone, no matter which network you dey on. Just use your Flow.
Dial star 129 sign to activate your combo plan today.
Why not stay in, turn off the alarm clock, and sleep some more on your perfect mattress from Quartz? For the widest range of mattresses from the world's best brands, the best value guaranteed. Shop today and let our sleep experts help you to decide on the best option to suit your needs. At Quartz, we don't just sell mattresses, we're offering you the best night's sleep. So, sleep in a little on your new mattress from Quartz. Quartz, bringing value home.
different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
Avec moi, isolation, ça